Now, I don't know if you've been told, but I am here to tell it. You see, the heroes that you're really seeking, you see, the leaders, the role models that you should really be striving to emulate, they are not actors and actresses. Hollywood cannot give you your real heroes, black people. They're not sports stars. They're not athletes. They're not singers. They're not rappers. The real heroes, the real soldiers, are actually soldiers on the front line. People like Ibrahim Traore, doing great works in Africa, in Burkino Faso. And that's who we're going to talk about right now. Now, one of the main reasons I want to talk about him is because they're trying to get rid of him. Yeah, they're trying to unalive him for all the great works he's been doing, for the revolutionary works and his speeches, right? Very impactful across Africa. And because he's such a target, because he's such an enemy of many who don't like African progress, we have to talk about him before something happens to him. Africa is really listening to this man and being inspired in so many ways. This man is just 36 years old, right? He was born in 1988, but yet still his actions, his deeds so far since stepping into power in 2022, September 2022, his deeds have proven to be that of one of the greats, one of the well-renowned African leaders, right? Now, at the age 34, Traoré became the world's youngest president of the nation of Burkino Faso. Cool, very powerful nation, very mineral-rich nation. Now, Ibrahim Traoré's rise, his ascension to power in 2022 was through a coup. He overthrew the government at the time, who was being ran by an interim president, who was also another military leader like himself, because he thought the leader wasn't doing well enough, right? And that was a man called Damiba, okay? Mr. Damiba. We'll just shorten the name, right? It's a long name, but we're just going to call him Mr. Damiba for now. No, Damiba, as the former president, is who is being assumed as the one who planned this attack, this second attack, right? So apparently they were trying to bomb the presidential house, and those plans were thwarted by, I guess, his security officials. They're not giving too much detail as yet. And it's a very similar story with the attempt on his life last year. 2 times now they failed, right? And as I say, I want to tell the world about him before he eventually passes or whatever may happen to him. Zane, it's like they want to erase him before the world really gets to know how great he is. And this man is influencing Africa in so many ways, just through his actions, through his dealings, right? Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have formed a defense pact recently, right? What else did they do? They got out the French, right? So he sent home a lot of French troops because for some reason the French has had a heavy presence in Burkina Faso for many years, right? The French actually used to control Burkina Faso at one point in time, and Burkina Faso's main language for the longest while was French. However, Ibrahim Traore changed that since coming into power. He removed French as the main language of the nation and replaced it with the indigenous languages. Rightfully so, you understand? So he's also said to be building a airport in Ouagadougou, right? Now, apparently the French had a contract to build that airport, and they messed up for whatever reasons, and he took over the contract from the French company, and so he is going to see to it that this airport is properly done. See, it's also said that he's built many roads and modernized the roads actually in Burkina Faso, right? Bringing them up to date. That's another great deed. He's worked with many entrepreneurial groups around Burkina Faso as well. So he's all about community development through entrepreneurship and things of that nature. And so skills training, right? Stuff like that. He's been very instrumental in his nation. Now, when it comes to minerals, when it comes to natural resources, Burkina Faso is wealthy. Burkina Faso has gold, bauxite, nickel, copper, magnesium, manganese. They have diamonds, they have phosphate, they have limestone, vanadium. And however, unexplored these resources are, President Traoré definitely wants to make use of them so that he can take his nation to the next level. Of course, rightfully so, right? Now, according to a YouTuber called the New Tourist, right, in November 29, 2023, the junta government that just took office in Burkina Faso has started an innovative project building the country's first gold refinery. Officials from the government confirmed this noteworthy achievement, which is a critical step towards utilizing Burkina Faso's main mineral resource. On November the 23rd, President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso placed the foundation stone for the country's first gold refinery. 11 months from now, the facility will generate its first gold, with a production capacity of around 400 kilograms of gold per day. The project is being developed in partnership with an existing company called Mareha Gold. Burkina Faso produced 57.6 tons of gold in 2022, down 14% year on year. Note that Burkina Faso's mining industry is driven mostly by gold mining and accounts for 16% of GDP and 80% of exports. The government declared that it would construct a refinery to process gold locally in order to boost the sector's economic contribution. This was one of the main reasons for launching the refinery. So don't play with this man or take him simple. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's about. I think the West is looking for a leader who they can control in Burkina Faso, who can then give them all of these natural resources for cheap or for free, right? We know how they are. Put a president in power, right? Put their little puppet government together, and next thing you know, the biggest mineral companies are down there, the biggest refineries are down there, and all of these big companies would be foreign companies, would be making most of the profit. Most of that profit would be going back to Europe or forward into America. He knows this, and so I can see him making enemies because of the way in which he wants to control the natural resources of Burkina Faso, control the wealth of Burkina Faso for the people. Yeah, sticking on the topic of why people might possibly want him not living, right, is because of all these great things he's doing now. As I said, taking back the land for the people, resources and all of that. Now, when you think about who is also in Burkina Faso, who might be offended by that, well, you have a very strong presence of the French in Burkina Faso. All right, when it comes to French businesses, right, according to diplomatie.gouv.fr, Burkina Faso was France's sixth largest trade partner in sub-Saharan Africa in 2021. Burkina Faso is home to some 50 subsidiaries of French companies. In total, there are an estimated 70 French subsidiaries of interest in Burkina Faso. Some 50 French business people are present in the hospitality and tourism sector. Investments of French companies are concentrated in the following sectors: agriculture, the food industry, construction, banking and insurance, and communication services. So France is heavy in Burkina Faso, right? Why is it that every nation that France used to colonize, that won its independence, that fought for its independence, why are those nations some of the most struggling and poorest nations on earth? I don't think that's just a coincidence, And you check nations in Africa that the French have had an impact in, and it's the same thing. Burkina Faso was colonized in the 1800s by France. Yet still, Burkina Faso has been suffering to this day. And we all know what that was about, right? They didn't go over there to help the people of Burkina Faso to be more civilized and to be better people, right? They went there because they wanted to control the land. They wanted to control the resources. They wanted to control the people. Slavery is why they were there, right? And so they made millions, billions off the backs of the Burkina Faso people and African people in general. It's going to limit it to the Burkina Faso people, right? The French has been all over Africa. So for them to have controlled Burkina Faso for this long, yet still Burkina Faso is suffering this much, we know that their agenda, their motives cannot be pure, right? Because if they were, this country would be great. But they set it up so that Burkina Faso needs them. Burkina Faso has to depend on them for whatever reason, right? Whether it's security, whether it's resources, whether it's the means of production. France definitely has a huge role to play in how Burkina Faso has turned out, has been destabilized. They have been in civil wars for as long as we can remember. France is the 7th richest nation on earth. They are the 7th richest nation on earth, according to Forbes, according to the World Bank. They're up there. They're in the top 10 richest nations on earth. When you check Burkina Faso is in the top 15 poorest nations, or top 20 poorest nations. Yeah, Burkina Faso is like number 19. So they're 19th. They're the world's 19th poorest country. That's how bad it is for them. But yet still the French have such a strong presence and have had such a strong presence there. They have so many businesses there. They're so involved in Burkina Faso. But yet still this nation is just plagued with trouble over and over again. It's plagued by wars, civil unrest. I'm glad that I have developed over time this interest for African issues, African affairs, African news, because there are many nations that deserve to be on mainstream media's top 5 topics for the day. There are many nations that deserve that type of media coverage, but you're not going to hear about them because they're African nations. You're not going to hear the situations that's going on. Now, when we're talking about struggling people, when we're talking about crisis around the world, we have to remember that African crisis, African situations are largely unreported in the media. When we're talking about Burkina Faso and what Ibrahim Traore is doing, it's something that you don't hear much in the media. You're not going to hear it on mainstream media. Your favorite YouTube and podcast and are talking about these things, right? So we have to talk about it. Now, I saw somewhere in some article where in 2018 or since 2018, matter of fact, in 2022, right? This article says in one city called Djibo in Burkina Faso in late 2022, up to 85% of families' meals consisted of foraged leaves. Foraged leaves. This is what the people are eating. And that's not all, because right now, probably since the past 10 years or more, Burkina Faso has been going through one of the biggest humanitarian crises in modern times, right? Where they have the biggest neglected displacement issue of any other people in modern history. Over 2 million people have been displaced from their homes in Burkina Faso. Over 2 million people. That's a lot of people that had to just flee from their homes because of war. And Burkina Faso is not fighting against the next nation. It's not like Israel and Palestine. It's not like Russia and Ukraine. This is happening by armed rebels, armed forces, just some independent militias, some Lego beasts, as we call them, right? These people are bringing the war to their own people in their own regions. It's not even as I say, this is an internal situation, right? And France, the biggest contributor to Burkina Faso, and one of their biggest hindrances probably at the same time, are not being held responsible for this crisis. Neither France nor NATO, two of the biggest contributors to this situation, to the destabilization of Burkina Faso. They're nowhere to be found when it comes to accountability. Now, when I made that video talking about the UN's involvement in Africa and how they've been destabilizing the Middle East and Africa as a result of their involvement, people never check for that video. But this is a real crisis. This is real things going on. People are dying by the thousands, right? You have some crazy militants creating havoc in the Sahel region, and that is basically the region between Burkino Faso, Mali, and Niger, stretching from Mauritania to Ethiopia, basically. So the man them running amok over there, right? You're not seeing it on the news though. Every day we're being told about Palestine, Gaza, Israel, Ukraine, Russia. But you're not hearing about what's going on in Africa, places like Burkina Faso. So I have to talk about it. It's sad. What are the French doing to help Burkina Faso, or what have they been doing to help Burkina Faso? I don't see much results. Now, I haven't been studying it long enough to know every little detail, but what I can tell you is that these nations, these bigger nations, they know what they're doing. When you have one of the richest nations in the world having the most businesses and business involvement, the most investment in one of the poorest countries in the world, and they cannot help this nation out of abject poverty. They cannot help this nation to become a stable nation with a proper government, with a proper economy. That's not coincidental. So we don't trust them. Never will, because of the history that they have with African nations. So France, they need to go. And they're going, They are going. I'm sure Mr. Traoré is ensuring that they do. And we're talking about the corrupt foreigners, the corrupt French, the corrupt British, the corrupt Americans, whoever is in that country that needs to get out, even people from Burkina Faso, the Burkinabe people who are corrupt in the government, need to leave. You know what I mean? It's just that simple, and we love that attitude from the leader, Ibrahim Traore. And as I said before, he's inspiring other African nations. It's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing. We love it. Anyways, we have more to talk about. We have more topics to cover. But we'll stay on this one. We'll keep you updated on the latest as it relates to Ibrahim Traore and Burkina Faso scene. Go on, stay tuned. Subscribe, like, share, comment, follow the works. Give thanks.